I'll talk about this Troton glass fiber polyester putty, or what do you call it. I've used, I would say, about 5 kilos now. 5 kilos worth of that material. It is, I would say, one of the best glass fiber putties I've used. I've used quite a few over the years. Of course, a product is only as good as the preparation you do. But let me just show how it looks. I'm gonna open it up quickly. I have a few more cans here, as you can notice. That's also, if you buy it, make sure that the batch number, actually batch production date, is quite new. Right now it's 24/06/2025. It's produced, and the date is 12th September, so 12/09 it should be. I mean, this is today's date. So you want to use the putty in about a year, maybe a year and a half. As you can see, it's usually, you can see the line where it's usually filled up to. And after that, you're left with quite nice cup you can clean out and maybe put some nails or bolts or whatnot in. So not only you get some putty, you get some container as well. It also comes with this hardener. Sometimes it's hard to apply right amount. Sometimes I put too much hardener, which I tend to do sometimes. Sometimes I put too little. I think that's enough for one set. It dries quite fast. Right now we have time because we haven't put the hardener yet. The hardener, it says 100 divided by 2, which pretty much means for 100% of the putty, put 2% of the hardener. So if you have a weight, and you might be able to weigh it, but if it's a small amount, it's gonna be, you have to have a really sensitive scale for that. But what it says is you have about 4 to 7 minutes of apply time at 20 degrees Celsius. It's gonna dry in about 20 to 30 minutes in 20 degrees Celsius. Also says you can sand it with 80 to 320 grit, and anywhere between these two numbers is good. It depends on your application. Then is of course some shelf life, 1 year to 20 degrees. That's what it says. Yeah, it's a nice green color. Doesn't smell too bad. Smells quite decent. It's I would say it's a kind of like medium thickness. I think it's not very runny, which sometimes can be a bad thing. It's a bit of a, it's not a fine texture. It's gonna leave a quite rough surface, so you would have to go over with the medium. I mean, you should have to go over with a fine putty as well, which they do sell as well, which I might show a bit later. But right now I'm just spreading it out, which you don't have to do that much. I'm just showing it more. We can apply some hardener. What I like to do is make few passes like that. Sometimes I get it quite right, sometimes I get it quite off, but in the general window. And then I like to spread it out a bit before I begin. And now there's a bit of a time crunch, because if we mix it forever, we're gonna be left with a very nice, equally hardened pile of putty on on that makeshift basic container lid of a mixing table or mixing. It's actually quite expensive, these, but if you get a plastic piece that is the right shape or size, then it would be actually quite useful. So we're just mixing it, trying to get rid of some air bubbles. It's better to do when you spray it out like that. So I think it's quite good now. It's usually easier to mix when you have a smaller batch, but we have quite a lot to apply, so I wanted to get as much as I can in one go, because I have to do this thing in at least 5 times. You don't want to go too thick at first, because it's harder to get the air out. In this gap, I found it nicest to go small step at a time when you have quite a lot of putty on the smaller, smaller spatula, no, something smaller, the applicator, plastic thingy. And what you want to do is press it in quite nicely. There is obviously going to be some air between the sheets of metal we have here. And we're going to use power tools to grind it down later, so we don't worry about going too thick here. But if you're using handheld device or a hand sander, then you probably want to be a bit more careful how much you apply it, because you're gonna have a hard time. If you have a very tight cap, like I have here, I like to go in and then with the edge, just to really kind of like half mess it up, press it in more, and then apply some more on top of there. I'm not saying my application method is perfect. Maybe there's some car guy who does this every day and maybe got some professional education on it and just gonna watch the video, hold his head, be like, what the hell is he doing? But I found that this works pretty well, because I've had this misfortune of put it in the similar gap, and then for a reason, because I didn't paint it fast enough, and I wanted to put more tack welds because I put them too wide apart, I need to grind and get that putty out again. And let me tell you, this thing holds on really damn well. It's getting quite strong already. Yeah, I should not, maybe just play around with that a little bit. There we go. Maybe I'm gonna add it as an extra layer, but you can start feeling it's gonna get gently stiffer, and then that's when you want to be like, okay, it's done. I don't want to apply any more of that. Indeed, smooth out a little bit, and you want the ends to have not like caves, but you want the ends to be a bit more lower. So if you add next layers or whatnot, you don't have to go under stuff, which you would not want. So, but this is getting hard already. If I do a gap, you want. It's not hard yet, but I can feel it. I've been using it quite a long time. I can feel it, how it wants to set. But yeah, as I said, the prep is really important. There I used another one. The prep is really important. You want to have a really nice, clean. I don't know if you can see well. You want a very nice rough surface. I use the, what is it called? I also use that to make extra roughness in that cap. Although the cap has sides, which is very good. And before I put the sheet metal on, I also used angle grinders, 120 or 140 grit sandpaper behind here. So there's a bit of a roughness already on that surface. And of course in the front of it as well. It's galvanized steel. And I need to fill all that in today. Actually not even today, in an hour. Just let it dry off a bit. I like to, when I quickly gonna add the next one, I'm gonna add it here, maybe that section here, around that much. And then I'm gonna let these two dry, and when these two are dry, then I'm gonna connect them with the new patch. So if it's still like half wet, and I'm like sticking my applicator plastic thing in there, then it might cause some issues. But you can use, to clean these holes, you can use just the white spirit or technical alcohol, or whatever you call it in your country. I use this the Tecordal 4715 wipe phosphating agent from Glute. This chemical is actually very good, and actually designed to do this type of work, to prep your metal and slightly etch it using phosphoric acid, from similar to the acid primers or etch primers. They will make a chemical roughness to the surface, so things prime better. But that putty will expand from around the corners a bit and will hold really well. Let me just show you how I usually clean it. I make my hand dirty. This thing in here didn't get so it's still wet. Thing is, it's dry. If it's very dry, big chunks will just bend off. But if it's not that dry, just use the corner of the table and just scrape it off. I usually do it before it gets that dry, so it comes off even faster than right now. Right now it's, I wouldn't say struggling a bit, but it's a bit dry. It's not the most stable table in the world, but... And these stainless steels, you can easily use a wire brush, or that purple one there, to easily clean off later. And then I use the technical alcohol to clean it, and then I start again. Maybe it's a bit longer video than you wanted. Look for, maybe even you're already gone, but I'm talking to myself. Maybe it gives you a slight idea how I do it. This thing has been used maybe 50 times. I have more of these lids, but I'm just used to cleaning it. Of course, before you apply a new one, you want to wait for that to evaporate, fumes and the alcohol, so you don't damage the putty that you are putting on here again. Bodywork is not a rush work, you just take time. And with that putty, it's not waterproof. So if you're like me and not painting this year or anytime soon, what you want to do is paint it, which sounds maybe funny, but just go other side for a second. So just, as you can see here, there is some white stuff on the putty places, and the white stuff is actually paint. What I do is I put more putty than I need, I build it up, and then I paint it twice, 2 layers, to make sure it has a watertight seal, so it doesn't take in any moisture during the winter in this workshop. it's a cold workshop, so it might get more moisture. So yeah, later on I just used the tool to grind it down to level. I have a very nice tool for that. These types of that's a bit worn out already, but these types of coral type, very good. So yeah, consider, maybe you don't like this review, maybe you like it. You can click the button accordingly. It says professional use only. So if you're a professional, you can use it. If you're not, well, it says on the box you can't use it. It's made in Poland, by the way. And yes. If you have any questions, leave a comment. If you don't have any questions, don't leave a comment. And thanks for watching, I suppose.